Making the decision to hire a property manager or self-manage your rental properties is a big one. So in today's video, I am excited to share with you pros and cons to each of these options so you can better weigh out these for yourself, and I'll share with you my insights and experiences as well, and recently going from self-managing my properties to hiring a property manager. It is estimated that in the United States, there are between 10 and 11 million individual investor landlords managing an average of 2 units each, many with just 1 unit. Now I wanted to find out how many landlords are actually hiring a property management company, and this is what I found. There are rental housing reports showing that almost half, or 45% of property owners manage their own units, with 44% of landlords hiring a third party or outsourcing property management companies to manage them. Pretty interesting, right? Okay, so now I want to provide you with a brief background into my real estate journey. I purchased my first real estate property, a townhome, back in my early 20s while going to college, and it was right after getting married to my sweetheart. We then purchased a condo and at the same time rented out the first property, the townhome, which was in an amazing location next to 2 major colleges. We later sold the first property and bought a single family home. Up until that point, my wife and I had not considered hiring a property manager. It was once we hit CoSpire and semi-retired abroad that we really seriously considered it. So there are many pros and cons to each of these options, self-managing versus hiring a property manager. It's very essential to do research, understand the pros and cons, and also understand your personal needs and circumstances. So let's take a closer look. First off, pros to self-management. A huge reason to manage rental properties on your own is because you'll definitely save money. And this idea of saving money and being frugal was at the forefront of my mind, definitely back in college when we first started buying real estate. 2 main things you'll be saving money on is first, repairs, and second, property management fees. Okay, so let's talk about repairs for a second here. Back when I was managing my own properties, there were countless examples when I was able to save so much money by fixing repairs by myself and going to places like Home Depot to purchase materials such as paint for touch-ups and things like that. There was a time in our condo rental property where the wall had been damaged, so I had to replace the drywall, which I did all by myself, and it didn't cost me a whole lot. So I gave the 2 quick examples of touching up on paint and also repairing drywall, right? Now that I'm living abroad, we had another drywall repair, which was much smaller than the one I repaired previously, and to fix the drywall and everything, it cost us $300. Now, as I just mentioned, there are also property management fees, and depending on which property management company you use, there may be different packages and services available to you at different price points. I personally pay a fixed percentage of each month's rent to my property manager, and there's also another add-on fee if there are new tenants that need to be found, so a one-time fee for finding new tenants per property. In the past, I would use a free online screening service. I actually used apartments.com, which worked really well. I want to add a quick note here that it is essential to build up your own resource list of reliable handymen and people you trust who can fix things, because there will be emergencies and things that you may not be specialized in to fix yourself. So it's key to have this resource list and to find some contacts before the emergency happens. Doing so can help you save even more money. Another pro that I want to mention here is that you do get to learn firsthand how to become a better landlord. For example, I was able to learn a lot more about the laws in Utah where I lived, and also learn how to create a solid lease agreement. Learning how to become a better landlord does take time though, which leads into our first con. Self-management can be very time consuming. It's true that when you become a landlord, it is a 24/7 on-the-call job. There were many times where I had to step away to take a call to handle some sort of repair or question from a tenant. One example is that before moving abroad, I was at the gym and getting in a fantastic workout, and of course, I got a call from a tenant at our condo property and there was a leak. So I had to take care of that, and it ended up taking a little bit longer than expected, so I was just outside of the gym on the phone taking care of business. Not to mention, life can get so busy. Back when I was in college, I was going to school full-time, I was working full-time, and also have kids. So yeah, that was a pretty stressful time in life, but now that I've graduated, it is much better. Although this is a con, it's all up to your viewpoint. I mean, the more time you put into it, the more experience you get, and even if you are crazy busy like I used to be, it is still doable. A quick plug-in here is that it's important to have a solid lease agreement and a solid tenant screening process so you can do everything in your power to get good tenants. That will go a long way to save you time and money. And self-managing your rental properties, there are also more opportunities. In addition to saving money, there are more opportunities to lose money by making mistakes. For example, it's good to understand insurances and to have the correct type of policy with the correct amount of coverage. It's also crucial to understand the rental market, your unit, when it's time to make upgrades, when it's time to increase rent, and things like that. And amongst learning all these things, there are mistakes that will be made which will cost you money at times. So that's important to understand going into it. Alright, so I want to touch on now some of the pros or good reasons for hiring out a property management company. There is no family drama. And what I mean here is that if you live in close proximity to family members, you may sometimes call upon them or have the temptation to ask them to help you manage your property. The thing is, when you involve family with business, it can get messy sometimes and there may be misunderstandings or miscommunications that happen. So having a property manager eliminates any of those family drama risks that come with asking family members to help out with managing your properties. Second, hiring out a professional property management company is an excellent option for those living overseas, such as myself. For me, there's definitely less stress because I know that there will be no lag in communication or getting repairs fixed because I have a reliable and trustworthy property manager. Another reason for hiring a reliable property manager is truly because they are professional and they understand all laws. The property manager I am working with currently is extremely professional, understands, as I mentioned, all the laws, and everything is conducted in a more professional way. Before moving overseas, my property manager definitely took more professional pictures before listing our property and also was very strict with the tenant screening process. And so far, we've ended up with amazing tenants in that single family home or that third property. Another thing to mention is that we all have different personalities or styles when we're self-managing properties. For me, in addition to setting expectations and having a clear understanding of the lease agreement, I tend to be a pretty nice guy and like to understand my tenants, but when first starting off, that led to some costly mistakes. An example is on my first property, after the first tenants moved out and we got new tenants, there were actually some serious scrape marks left behind both on the floor and on the walls. Being a young and dumb new landlord, I didn't deduct anything from the deposit because I knew them pretty well and I thought they were really good tenants. But in reality, I would have been justified deducting it from their deposit to help cover the cost to fix it. Now, as I mentioned, everybody is in different stages of being a landlord and have different personality types, and you learn things along the way. But by having a reliable property manager, it can save you so much time and money, and they are professional and know many of the rules. But now, after having a professional property manager, they do deduct from the deposit when necessary. For example, tenants in our second property recently left and they did leave scratches on the wall without fixing it. And this last pro for hiring a property manager also comes from personal experience, but there truly is less stress and anxiety in communication, specifically communication with tenants. Sometimes I overthink things or scenarios. It's important to find a balance between nice and direct, right? In some situations, a property manager may be more direct and professional about communication. Just recently, I saw an email between one of our tenants and our property manager, and the property manager said very directly, "Hey, there's many weeds in the front yard, it's getting out of hand and they need to be pulled." Now that's an easy and simple example, but just not having to participate in those conversations is quite a relief of stress for me. Okay, and last off, let's talk about some cons of hiring a property manager. For starters, if you're not careful, you could end up choosing a company that doesn't prioritize your needs. Make sure that you fully understand everything that's included in their service package. If you don't understand something, just ask, and make sure to also check reviews. It's also crucial that you make sure the property manager is thorough and not lazy. Keep tabs and make sure they're checking up on the tenant and the property condition. Another great piece of advice is to reach out to other landlords in your area and ask them for trusted sources or people that they would highly recommend. Okay, so another con to hiring a property manager is that cost could become an issue. Here again, I want to emphasize just to do as much research as you can. Look at different packages and options and see what could potentially work for you and your budget. My wife and I are fortunate to have a very trustworthy friend who has their own property management company and is now our property manager. And when it comes down to cost, you're going to need to see what you can actually afford, and it could be possible to strike a balance between doing both of them, self-managing some of the tasks and hiring out some of them to a property manager. In addition to how much money you're willing to spend, it really comes down to your personal preference, how much control you want to have over your properties and tenants, and also how you want to manage your time. Overall, my experience self-managing has been a very good one and something I do not regret doing. But now that I'm living overseas and I have a reliable property manager, I also don't regret it. But it is essential, regardless if you're self-managing or hiring a professional company, to do your research and get prepared. I will be doing another video shortly sharing some tips on how to find a good property management company. I'm also working on another video where I will share my cost breakdown for hiring a property manager. So make sure to subscribe if you haven't already to not miss out on more content to come. Until next time, I wish you the very best with your landlord experience and journey. Catch you next video.